Coming up on today's Locked On Senators, it's undisputed to say that Snoop Dogg and Nico Sparks are on a full court blitz to try and get the Ottawa Senators. Snoop Dogg's media tour continued yesterday. He was on with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharpe.
And we continue our exit interviews for Sens players today. It's two UFAs in Austin Watson and Derick Brassard.
Should either UFA be brought back? We'll get into that conversation and more. This is the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 793 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Please like and subscribe wherever you download your podcasts, including on YouTube, where the best way you can help us grow is to leave a comment below. Should the Senators bring back either Derick Brassard or Austin Watson? Sound off in the comments. Today is Friday, May 5th, and Pilsy, the Toronto Maple Leafs have lost 2 games at home to start the second round.
Yeah, I mean, they made it out of the first round, Ross, but still, 19 years later, have not won a game in the second round of the playoffs. So we're holding on to that.
Well, you can even go a couple years further if you want to pull that one out of your hat.
Yeah, true.
So there you have it. The Toronto Maple Leafs down 3-2 in the game, 2-0 in the series, and Florida getting great goaltending, getting a bit of everything. The games were awesome. I think high pace, intensity, and some great physicality as well.
Yeah, and I mean, the key to Florida is you got a $10 million guy in the crease there. You just never know when he's going to show up, but he's showing up when it matters most. So that's huge for them. And the kind of the group of Barkov, Matthew Tkachuk, Brandon Montour, Aaron Ekblad, like they're all kind of gelling, and it seems to work.
Yeah, I mean, they've got some great like grinders too up there with like Nick Cousins is out in the series from Belleville, Ontario. You got Sam Bennett from Toronto. Like they've got a lot of Ontario-born guys. Most teams do, but I believe it was 11. Is that a crazy number?
No, I bet that's probably right. Yeah.
Carter Verhaeghe's another one. Like you go up and down that lineup, and it's just guys. It's literally just like when Vegas played in Winnipeg. Like all those guys, they get up for those games, right? They're following along on social media throughout the year with friends and family. They have friends and family or fans of those teams. So I just think it adds such a wrinkle. All 4 goal scorers in Game 1 were Ontario-born players for the Caps. I'm not sure about last night, but yeah, it's been an incredible start to that series, and we're getting treated with a phenomenal playoffs overall. It really makes me just wish and miss that the Senators are on the outside looking in again. Hopefully the last year, because I don't know how many more of these that we can just watch and wait. I'm sure Brady Tkachuk is feeling the same way, watching his brother back-to-back years now get past the first round.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I feel like Brady's probably sitting there being like, I feel like I'm at a point now in my career where I've earned the right to get to that postseason, and he's got a team and a roster now that has the ability, in my opinion, to do it. So, although these playoffs are exciting, Ross, I just want to get to October ASAP. Let's get this going.
Well, so we always call the Senators a young core, and they still are. But like Drake Batherson just turned 25. Josh Norris, happy birthday, buddy. Just turned 24 today. Like, no longer are these guys, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed rookies just kind of wobbling their way into the league. Yep. This is the prime of their career that they're entering right now. Mm-hmm. And I know the second wave is just starting, the Stützles, the Sandersons, but like that initial wave that they had, the Brady Tkachuk, Josh Norris, Drake Batherson, Thomas Chabot, those guys are now in their primes. It's time to take another step. And I think the players know that. Drake Batherson was on with Wally and Jason York yesterday, and he threw out the P word. So the players aren't scared of it. Batherson says anything short of playoffs is a disappointment. And I don't blame him, especially like this guy's only playoff attempt in pro hockey was cut short because of COVID. Like he didn't make the playoffs his only year that they had playoffs in the AHL that he was there. And then now he's going on year 4 of NHL action and still nothing.
I mean, they were so close this year with all those injuries. So you get those guys in training camp, you get hopefully a healthier roster than they did this season, and it's looking good. It's looking good. There's a couple pieces in the offseason we got to take care of, Ross, but other than that, this team is poised for the P word.
Well, the first step in the offseason, the first thing on the NHL's offseason calendar is coming up on Monday. Yep. So stay tuned for us for a full breakdown of how the NHL draft lottery could work out. But that's on Monday, Billsy. We'll talk about where we want to see Connor Bedard, where we don't want to see him go, Montreal. Yeah. But anywhere else, we'll have that discussion on Monday. Now, the Senators are out on Connor Bedard because they finished 12th. Therefore, the most you can move up is 10 spots. The Ottawa Senators have a 2.5% chance of drafting second overall. Don't tell me there's a chance. 2.5%. And then I believe they have a 0.1% chance of drafting third overall. Don't ask me how to get into the details of those numbers. But if they don't win the lottery, they lose the pick, and just go watch Jacob Chychrun highlights. You'll be okay, Sens fans. We've had draft moments over years past. But if they win the draft lottery, Pilsy, I'm assuming that means live stream right away.
Oh, yeah. We're all over it, and that brings back the Sens' interest in this draft. I mean, we're fired up about the draft regardless, but it would be nice, Ross. We're used to having first-round picks in the draft, and now it's been 2 straight, or it could be 2 straight years without first-round picks, so that'll be interesting.
We want to get to our exit interviews, but before we do that, Pilsy, your thoughts on Snoop Dogg's continued media tour? Because last time we spoke, he had already gone on First Take with Stephen A. Smith, the #1 sports show in the United States on cable television. He had already done the article through Ian Mendez about what he was going to bring to the Ottawa Senators. He had already, or the Nico Sparks group, I should say, had already kind of got that article out there from the Ottawa Business Journal talking about the local connections. But then now he's going on Undisputed, which is another, I would say, top 5 rated show in the United States for sports. Like, he is reaching a demographic that I don't think the Senators have really reached before.
Yeah, exactly. Like, especially on ESPN, Ottawa Senators probably are 2 words that have not been mentioned very often.
I bet the last time was the Uber video. That made ESPN.
Yeah, Ubergate, that definitely that popped off for sure. But I mean, if you're gonna do a full court press, Ross, do a full court press, and he's really pushing it here. And if you're the Nico Sparks group, you got to be pretty happy with how it's coming off. It's definitely gaining a lot of interest. It's drawing a lot of eyeballs towards their group, which I'm sure was the #1 goal for this. And it just seems like, Snoop Dogg is really trying to say, I'm not just doing this for fun. It's not a flash in the pan thing. Like, I'm all in on this. And that's what we want. We want people that, if you're going to be a part of the ownership group that eventually owns the Ottawa Senators, you got to be all in, and you got to be coming from the right place. It seems like he's really focusing more on the city of Ottawa than he was when he started, and that's a good thing. And the idea that he wants hockey to reach a generation of youth that typically haven't been involved in hockey, I think is great too. So it's a lot of fun to see, and it's all positive so far.
Yeah, it's great. One of the things he said on Undisputed that he hadn't really said before, and it makes sense when they're talking about kind of the urban communities, the inner city communities, and how any sport they're introduced with, they can elevate it and make it better. And obviously they pointed out, like, the whitest sport of all time, golf. Well, who's the greatest golfer of all time now? It's Tiger Woods. They talk about Venus and Serena Williams coming from Compton to become the greatest women's tennis players of all time. And it's another analogy that Snoop Dogg used was, hey, in the 60s in the NBA, it was pass, 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 shoot. Well, now, and these are his words, the brothers come in, and all of a sudden you're getting behind the head passes. You're getting like the flair for the dramatics where you're keeping in. And it's just athletes, right? You bring in different athletes from different backgrounds. You're going to be able to produce different styles, right? Like you talk about Euro steps in basketball, right? Like obviously there's an origin story for that. And for him to bring any sort of new demographic to hockey, it's only going to be great for the long run of the sport, right? We're already seeing more than ever the diversity in the NHL, and hopefully these steps continue to see that. I think I'm still Team Remington. I'm just starting to watch the Wrexham documentary.
Nice.
I watched the first episode.
It's good, eh?
Starting to get hooked.
Yep.
I just need something like that around the Ottawa Senators. Hey, maybe if Snoop Dogg and Nico Sparks win, they can hire Reynolds production company to do that. Eh?
Hey, I'd be all right with that. And yeah, like you mentioned, Ross, I think the thing with hockey and youth is there's so many obstacles, right? First off, you need ice. Not every spot has an arena available, or a good arena, or arena with enough times for kids to play. Then equipment is expensive. Not a lot of families can afford that equipment cost. Registration's expensive. You got to travel. You got to be getting up early in the morning on weekends. People have jobs. Some people 2, 3 jobs, and you don't have time for that. So if there's ways that we can allow any kids, regardless of race, more opportunities to play this great game and at least be introduced and have a chance. And if Snoop Dogg is going to be a part of that, I salute that for sure.
Yeah, the Snoop Football League, clearly a success. So if he wants to bring the Snoop Hockey League around, let's rock and roll. But interesting to see. So we know that May 15th is the next deadline for filing bids. That is, so this upcoming Monday, NHL Draft Lottery. The following Monday is to get your final bids in.
But Ross, the wording they used is unbinding bids. So I'm not really sure what that means.
All right, we'll have to get Bruce on the case. Explain it to me like I'm 5, please.
Yeah, exactly. Because every single time I've seen it, it's unbinding. So it makes it seem like these aren't the real bids yet. But I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm not a business major. So yeah, we'll have to do some research on that one.
We did research on our next 2 segments. Austin Watson, Derick Brassard, how were their seasons? We will discuss that. Coming up next, you're listening to Locked On Senators.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. Of course, everyone knows eBay, but did you know that you can get all the right parts for your car from eBay Motors? For Championship Team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. We're seeing that in the playoffs right now. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure that every part fits just right the first time around. That's the key. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for a green check mark, and you will know if your part will fit or you get your money back. It's simple, because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when all the right parts are guaranteed. So get the right parts, get the right fit, and get the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Check it out at eBay Motors.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Owl & Co. Grooming. You know Owl & Co. Grooming is a local Sens fan-started business that brings great grooming products to you. Whether you're a guy looking to finally take care of your beard or a woman who's looking to add more nourishment to your hair and help protect it against the sun, we know there's a product here that will help you out. Here's the starting lineup of products at Owl & Co., and you can go check them out, owlandcogrooming.com. They have hair tonics, sea salt sprays, and utility bombs. They've also got great merch. We just ordered ours. We're fired up to rock the Owl from Owl & Co. So all the products are made with natural ingredients such as coconut oil and sweet almond oil, and they're all made by hand in small patches. There's no cutting corners. So go outside your comfort zone and start with these products every single morning. You'll see that creating a grooming routine does not have to be something that you hate, and in no time, you can actually look forward to it. So Owl & Co. is all about helping you find a grooming routine free from complications. Visit on the web, owlandcogrooming.com, or on Instagram, Owl & Co. Grooming. And because you're a listener of Locked On Senators, here's a 15% off promo code. Use Senators15 for 15% off at checkout. Senators15 for 15% off at checkout at owlandco.com. Go to Owl & Co. Grooming to learn more. All right, Pilsy. Another week in the books. Another great week at Locked On Senators. Another busy week at Locked On Senators.
Always is.
We've done basically Snoop Dogg paparazzi.
Yeah.
We've been following his every move, learning about what the Nico Sparks group could bring if they are chosen, if they win the bid to buy the Ottawa Senators. We've also done exit interviews for Tim Stützle, for Claude Giroux, for Brady Tkachuk, for Drake Batherson, for Shane Pinto, for Alex DeBrincat. And now we continue. Well, we actually did continue. Matthew Joseph, can't forget him either. But now we're going to get to a couple depth players and two guys who I'm curious what the future holds for, whether it's in the NHL or if they're going to step away from the game as players, as these two veterans. It's the first time, Pilsy, that both the players we're doing are older than you and me. So that's an interesting.
Yeah, true. Right. Well, other than Claude Giroux.
Right, but for both in one day.
Yep.
In one day. God, we're getting old. All right, today on the exit interviews, we are going to start with Derick Brassard. Derick Brassard has been a Senator on and off now for the last few years. Over 200 games played with the organization. He came in on a professional tryout with no promises that it would amount to anything. What did he do? He ends up playing 62 games, including 13 goals during that season, 10 assists for 23 points, while averaging 12 minutes and 11 seconds. Clearly, the fans appreciated the effort that he gave, as they gave him a B grade on the season, an overwhelming majority, 60.4%. Derick Brassard's expected goals percentage was just a shade under 50 at 49.3, and his Corsi at 51.9. There were some extreme highs from his season. You think of the 1,000th game where he scored 2 goals at Madison Square Garden, his old stomping grounds, where he played so well for so long with the New York Rangers. And then you think about the broken femur that ended his season. How will you look back, Pilsy, on the season that was for Derick Brassard?
I think it was a great season, especially when you compare it to expectations. And I'm right with the fans here. I'm going to give him a B+ even, because this guy was asked to do a whole lot more than I'm sure Sens management, coaching staff, and even Derick Brassard himself anticipated he would do. And for a guy that had been bouncing around, like if you look at his hockey DB page, Ross, it's littered with teams all over the NHL. 1 year, different team, a couple teams in the same season as he went on. And it really seemed like he was winding down his career. And, you know, maybe people weren't sure what he had left, but we know that he loved playing in Ottawa. He said right after the only team he was going to play for this season was the Ottawa Senators, and he was willing to do a PTO. And he ends up coming in here and playing a big role as injuries riddled this team all over the front side of the roster.
Pilsy, when I went to go see the Senators play in Winnipeg just before Christmas, he was the #1 center.
Yeah, true. There was a little period there where he was the top guy. And before Shane Pinto was really elevated at the start of the season when Norris went down, Brass was handling second-line center minutes for quite a while. And he was a big part of the second power play unit. He had 5 power play goals of his 13 goals. And he was a guy that was able to provide offense in that bottom 6 where there wasn't a whole lot of. We talked about Matthew Joseph not being able to put the puck in the back of the net. Shane Pinto was up on that second line more often than not. So Derick Brassard was able to really help that bottom 6 get some scoring.
He certainly was, and I think he brought some confidence as well when it looks in terms of taking some key faceoffs. He was 50% on the year, but took 86 faceoffs. So he was a guy who they were able to count on to take a ton of draws in the bottom 6. And I just don't know where the Senators would have gone. It would have had to have been external for them to be able to get through the season with the injuries they had down the middle without Derick Brassard. So thank God that he came back and you always have to have a little extra respect for those guys, and as rare as they may be around the league, or although it seems like maybe more and more people want to play in Ottawa, where it's like he would only play here. So I just think that gives him a little bit of rope with the fan base right off the bat, and rightfully so. But I think that it was a tremendous way. If this is it for Derick Brassard, he should be leaving with his head held high, because my goodness, what a battle to get back from his encyclopedic journey around the National Hockey League, and to come back the way he has, and to come back and have the most points he had in 3 seasons, and in 4 of the last 5 that he's played, is truly remarkable that he's been able to get back. And if he does leave, he can say one thing, man. He played over 1,000 games in the National Hockey League, 1,013 games played. That's a hell of an accomplishment, and a heck of a career. And if again, you have to be able to put that in there too. If it is it, then I hope this guy has a job in the front office in Ottawa, because talking to Mark Mathod about it, who's known Brass since they were kids, basically grew up together in the Columbus system,
Yep.
and then played briefly together in Ottawa. Like, he thinks the game at an extremely high level. He's got that kind of Jason Spezza level passion for the game. And I would be surprised if he's not an executive in the NHL moving forward. We got to get him on the show this summer for sure. I'm going to talk to Meth about that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I mean, a 16-year career is incredible. And yeah, Ross, he's one of those guys where even though you knew he lost a step and the game's all about speed now, like, similar to, and I'm not comparing them, but like Claude Giroux, like, it doesn't matter that they've lost a step. They're just so smart hockey IQ wise that they're able to make up with that with smart plays that can set up those speedsters, those young guys that they play with. So
same draft, eh?
Oh yeah, true. So there you go. And Derick Brassard, man, I was so devastated when he had that injury, Ross, not only because like there's only a couple games left in the season here, but that is one of the worst injuries you can suffer, a broken femur. I mean, and I'm pretty sure he even said it, Ross, like he hurt the crack. Like, oh, that's got to be so tough. And you're so close to finishing off the season and having a nice off season to take time with your family and figure it out. But now you got to have intense rehab. And if there's even kind of shred of opportunity in his mind to return, Ross, he's going to have to work so hard in the off season to just be ready for training camp. Like just be able to show up for a PTO would be a big battle for him. Now, again, we're not saying in any way, shape, or form that this is it for him. But if he does want to continue, it's going to be a long road back. And I don't think anyone would blame him after 16 years, over 1,000 games, and recovering from a broken femur if he decides, hey, that's enough for me. And I agree with you, Ross. I would love to have him as a part of the development team here.
Yeah, absolutely. So credit to Derick Brassard for a successful season, I'll call it, for him. 2 goals. It's like these milestone games, when you're able to contribute in them, it just makes it so special. He even had a 3-point game against Anaheim in late November that really turned around what was an awful month. And, had a 2-point game against Montreal, which obviously I'm sure felt good. A Franco-Ontarian, or no, he's actually from the other side of the bridge. He's from Hull. So in his home province, we can say. Just a fun player, a guy who kept it loose around the room. And if you ask the guys in the room, they probably tell you one of the best teammates going. So credit to Derick Brassard. We'll see what's next for him, but it was a pleasure having him back, rocking the 6-1 in Ottawa this past season. Derick Brassard, a season in review. All right, coming up next, we will discuss Austin Watson and a whole lot more. Stay tuned. You're listening to Locked On Senators. All right, Pilsy. Want to remind everyone you can follow the show online at Sens Central on Twitter and lockedon.senators on Instagram. We're trying to grow the Instagram following a little bit. We're trying to be more active there. So please go give us a follow. Easy follow back. And we do appreciate the support as well on YouTube, where you can leave comments and a whole lot more below. Pilsy, we got to help out Kels right now. New listener alert
Yes.
We got to help out Kels. She reached out on Twitter, said, feel like I'm late to the game on the Sens Central podcast. No, you're not, Kels. You're right on time with the Sens Central podcast. And she wants to know, do I start at current episodes or from the beginning? Pilsy, what's your advice?
From the beginning, Kels, hop on SoundCloud, find Making Sense of the Sens. 2007. It's gone?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, fine. Start November 10th, 2019? Was that our first Locked On Senators episode?
Well, so some of our Making Sense of the Sens actually transferred onto this RS feed. I sent Ian Mendez that first episode, the one that he doesn't remember. He's like, I came on your show in April of 2018.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it was right after our episode titled Is This Rock Bottom? Spoiler. No, it wasn't.
Damn.
Yeah. So lots of episodes, obviously, if you include, I believe it's the last like 35 or 40 episodes that from Making Sense of the Sens that are on there. So you're looking at over 800 episodes that you'd have to go back. So I like what the advice was in the chat was just go back and listen to specific interviews that caught your attention. And I think you should start with a Making Sense of the Sens one at the very bottom.
Nice.
If you sort on Spotify, you can do it oldest episodes first and just handpick. Maybe Is This Rock Bottom would be a good one. Or Thank You, Eric, right after Carlson got traded. Like, we're doing this for a little while. Or how about this one, Pilsy? June 20th, 2018, the rebuild begins.
Wow.
It begins. We were breaking down the Mike Hoffman trade.
That seems like a lifetime ago. My God.
The best episode we ever did title-wise, Draft Foreplay, when they were picking fourth. They end up taking Brady Tkachuk.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Fun takes in that one.
That would be a good one to revisit.
Like, what did we say about Brady Tkachuk in that episode?
Yeah, I might go back and revisit that. But yes, Kels, welcome to the Locked On Senators podcast. And yeah, I would definitely say you got to listen to all the Igor episodes. I think that's an easy one. Igor is the best. Oh, what's that?
Noodles
for sure. Hashtag goalie friendly show.
Crooker was fun.
Crooker's a good time.
Our first time with Crooker, especially like when we're getting to know him, and we got to get him back. But I'm trying to think of what. Oh, Andre Waugh was before YouTube.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I think we've done over 100 interviews.
Oh, easily.
Yeah, so you got a lot to choose from, Kels. But thank you, and future Sens Central citizen, I'd say has to be.
Absolutely.
So we'll chat with you soon. And obviously go check out all the Sens Central citizens. That's where we have fans on the show who tell their story. We had Jordy this week. And, hey, we're 1-0 since having the anti-Leafs fan on for this.
True.
Losing at home. Leafs are 1-4, by the way, at home these playoffs.
Have fun, Leafs fans.
You'd think they'd be doing a whiteout the way they can't win at home.
No kidding. Oh, my God.
Seriously. All right, let's get back to our exit interviews. Today, we're going to discuss Austin Watson. If I could sum up Austin Watson's career with one word, warrior. Like, what else can you say about this guy? He's willing to put any part of his body in harm's way to help his team. Now, skill might be optional at times, but this guy, he knows his role, and he knows that he's going to have to take a beating sometimes to be able to contribute what he can best to the team. And there's no way to disrespect what he brings to an organization.
No, absolutely not. I mean, his toothless grin will tell you all you need to know about Austin Watson right off the bat. And I think, Ross, and we've mentioned this a couple times, but it bears repeating, he did well doing his role while he was here. I think that's fair to say. But now that this team is on a different kind of plane and elevated, different goals and different hopes, I think it's time that both sides can mutually move on, especially Austin Watson has mentioned he's looking for a multi-year deal. The Sens countered saying, we might be willing to bring you back on a one-year deal, so things might not work out there. But when you look at what he brought to this team, a fourth-line guy that lays out hits, blocks shots, kills penalties. Like, if you're looking at those stats, Ross, in hits, he's second on the team, only behind Brady Tkachuk. In blocks, he was fourth on the team. In penalty minutes, shorthanded time, he was fourth on the team. So he was a big part of a lot of those kind of gritty aspects that maybe don't get shined up so much, and the analytics community doesn't love them as much anymore, but they're a big part of the game. And I think while he was here, he did a great job of that.
It's still hilarious to see the splits between him playing against his hometown Detroit Red Wings and literally anybody else.
Wild.
He's just a goal-scoring machine against the Detroit Red Wings. But yeah, elsewhere, it's a whole lot of not much offensively. Against Detroit this year, in 4 games, he scored 4 goals. Last year against Detroit, I went to game log instead of splits. Last year against Detroit, 3 games, 2 goals. So in his last 7 games against Detroit, he has 6 goals and an assist.
Nice.
Hilarious to see the splits like that. But you look at his season as a whole. I'll pull up the graphic now as we're discussing it. But just super impressive for him that he's even the way he plays, that he's able to play 75 games in a season and be able to stay healthy enough to play. You doubt he's 100% for all those, but he did play 75 games, 9 goals, 2 assists, 11 points. Not very good on the shot share, 44.2% expected goals, 45.8% Corsi, and a time on ice of 10 minutes and 14 seconds. The majority of fans giving him a C grade, just adequate for his role with the Ottawa Senators. Should note as well that he was tied for second this year in the National Hockey League in fighting majors, only trailing Nicolas Deslauriers from the Philadelphia Flyers. It was a 2-way tie between Austin Watson and Patty Maroon. They each had 1 more fight than Tanner Jeannot. And his card was, he had some tough guys on there. He fought Nicolas Deslauriers in his final fight of the season. That was the same game, Pilsy, where Joel Farabee decided that he was going to try to get the cat going and drink and fed him a few. But all in all, the fights leave a lot to be desired. I think we can say that without being disrespectful. You can say that, he'll stand up against anyone, but typically it doesn't really go his way in terms of creating the same kind of momentum that we've seen. We've been lucky in Ottawa, though. We've had guys who just like killers, like all the way back. We talked about Denny Vial's stats recently on this show.
Yep.
Like, you go back to Mike Peluso and all those guys, or you can just look at the Brian McGrattan, Chris Neal era, Matt Carkner. Like these guys would rarely lose fights. But hey, he's a willing combatant. He's always ready to go, and I hope he gets a 2-3 year deal. I don't know if it's realistic after the age of 30. A lot of teams are like, I don't know about going that long term. But a great pro, just like we did with Nick Holden, Pilsy. I am happy to be a reference for Austin Watson. I don't really think he needs to come back to Ottawa, but I'll be a reference for him if he wants to go elsewhere. I'll put in a good word for him.
Yeah, and I think he could find a multi-year deal on a rebuilding team, Ross, because you need those veterans and you need those guys that can protect the investments, right? Like, you need that around. And I think it was good to have him in Ottawa, Ross, because I think guys like Mark Kastelic, Parker Kelly, you can learn a lot from a guy like Austin Watson on and off the ice. So again, he really did a good job doing his role while he's here, but I just think it's time to move on.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, how are you going to remember the Austin Watson era in Ottawa if it is all for him here?
Like you mentioned, he did get in a lot of fights. Like, he really had no fear when it comes to that. I always loved, Ross, his shirtless interviews in the intermission. Classic. Like, when Waddy's up there, it's tarps off and he's got the tats and he's just happy to chat with anyone. So, and I think it was important too, Ross. This is a guy that battled through addiction throughout his early 20s. And, I think it's important for young players to kind of see what that battle is like and how important it is to, take care of yourself, mental health, and obviously physical health as well. And the journey that he's gone through to get to what day sobriety did he hit? Did he hit it was a couple hundred, wasn't it, that Derick Brassard gave him the chip for? I forget now.
I think it was a number of years.
Yeah, like it was huge what he's been able to do. And I think that's great for a locker room to see a guy like that be able to do it.
4 years sobriety this January.
4 years. It's incredible, especially when you consider his story. So yeah, Austin Watson, it was good when he was in Ottawa. And I think there's a lot of things that can be learned from young players on and off the ice from him. So I think I gave him a C grade as well, Ross, because he knew his role, and that's what he did.
Yeah, and I think that if you ask the players in that locker room, especially the ones that have been here through the entire tenure of Austin Watson, they'll say they learned a lot from him off the ice as well. So I think that that's important and should not be discounted. Austin Watson finishes his Ottawa Senators career in all likelihood with how many total here? 22 goals, 15 assists, and 254 penalty minutes. All right, Pilsy, trivia time.
Oh.
Who played more games with the Ottawa Senators, Derick Brassard or Austin Watson?
Ooh. I'm going Brass.
It's Brass.
Yep, nice.
By how many?
Probably not by much. I'll say by 31 games.
Ooh, very close. Derick Brassard played 201 games with Ottawa. Austin Watson, 176. So 25.
Damn. Okay.
Guy. Yep. Any final thoughts on today's show, Pillsy? A lot of fun. Great week. I feel like a very re-listenable week, especially with not a whole lot of Sens news where it's like, okay, obviously there was the Snoop Dogg angle, the press tour, but I'm talking news on the ice. It was a little bit, we're in that lull right now where everybody's kind of getting their scouting in order because the Senators have, like, I can't even imagine. I'd love to chat with a scout about this. When you know that your team doesn't have a first, second, or third round pick, like you're going into games when you're watching. You're like, I'm not looking for the best player on the ice. I'm looking for like the secondary guys here and how they look.
Sneaky guys. Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, Ross, you can't just put your feet up and say we're not going to look at any of the top talent because you never know what trades could happen at the draft, and you need to be prepared if something does happen.
All right. What are your final thoughts?
Final thoughts are I really want this ownership thing to move along here. Like we mentioned, like this unbinding bids now, like I think I mentioned it yesterday, but I just want the new owners to come in and start making their impact. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. There you go. Some of the comments on YouTube are wild right now. Sorry, I just had a little glare. So my final thoughts is go check out the YouTube page, Locked On Senators. Please subscribe to the show. It really does help us out. And thank you to our great sponsors like Owl & Co. and a whole host of others. I really need to get this NASCAR jacket made, Pillsy. I've been talking about it for years, and now we're in a position lucky enough that people are trusting us with their brands on our show. So we got to get that figured out here soon. But Owl & Co. Senators 15 gets you 15% off. Help local, feel good. Mother's Day coming up in not this Sunday, but the next Sunday. So get ready. Get your mom the scent of beauty at Owl & Co. All right, that's all for us today. Have a great weekend. We will talk to you on Monday, unless if any news breaks on the weekend, you know Locked On Senators will have something for you, as we do each and every day. We are your team every day here on Locked On Senators. You can follow the show on Twitter at Sens Central and Instagram, LockedOn.Senators. For today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.